Jodie Foster's name carries a quiet authority, one earned not through spectacle but through decades of discipline, intelligence, and emotional depth. Born Alicia Christian Foster on November 19, 1962 in Los Angeles, she entered the world already surrounded by complexity. The youngest of 4 children, she was raised by her mother, Evelyn Brandy Foster, after her father left before her birth. The household was modest and often strained, but it was rich in expectation, intellect, and resolve. Brandy believed fiercely in preparation, education, and self-reliance, values that would define Jodie's life long before she could articulate them herself. From infancy, she exhibited startling awareness, speaking early, reading young, and absorbing information with an intensity that set her apart. This brilliance was not nurtured in leisure, but shaped within responsibility, as her childhood unfolded against the backdrop of work, schedules, and adult expectations that rarely pause for innocence. A childhood of work, not play. While many children learn through play, Jodie learned through performance. At just 3 years old, she was cast in a television commercial, a moment that quietly redirected the course of her life. What followed was not a sudden burst of glamour, but a steady immersion into routine labor, auditions, call times, memorization, and repetition. By the time she was old enough to understand the concept of money, she was already contributing to her family's survival, her earnings managed through trusts and contracts rather than allowance jars. Film sets replaced playgrounds and professionalism replaced spontaneity. She learned early how to listen, how to adjust, how to deliver exactly what was required without complaint. Adults praised her maturity, but that maturity was less a gift than a necessity, forged by circumstances that demanded reliability over rest and composure over curiosity. Intelligence as armor. What protected Jodie during these early years was not fame, but intellect. She approached her work with a seriousness that stemmed from comprehension rather than ambition. Scripts were puzzles to be solved, characters exercises in empathy. Even as a child, she understood motivation, subtext, and emotional continuity. Directors quickly learned that she did not need to be managed like a child actor. She needed to be challenged. Yet that intellectual sharpness also created distance. She was often the youngest person in the room and, paradoxically, the most prepared. That imbalance shaped her sense of self early, fostering independence but also isolation, as she grew accustomed to navigating adult spaces without the buffer of shared childhood experience. Early lessons in courage. As her career expanded into film, Jodie encountered moments that tested her resolve. Certain productions demanded physical and emotional bravery well beyond her years, and while safety measures were present, the psychological weight of such responsibility lingered. She learned how to push through fear, how to finish what she started, how to meet expectations even when uncertainty pressed in. These lessons were not abstract. They were embodied, lived, and carried forward. Hollywood rewarded this resilience with praise, but the deeper impact was internal. She learned early that success required endurance, and that discomfort was often treated as part of the job rather than a signal to stop. Becoming visible too soon. By her early teens, Jodie was widely recognizable, her face familiar to audiences who had watched her grow up on screen. Visibility brought opportunity, but it also brought scrutiny. She was no longer simply a child working in film. She was a public figure whose image was interpreted, discussed, and projected upon by strangers. That attention arrived before she had the emotional tools to process it fully. Childhood, already compressed by work, receded even further as adolescence unfolded under observation. Privacy became something to be defended rather than assumed, and personal boundaries had to be constructed deliberately, sometimes at great emotional cost. Choosing complexity over comfort, rather than retreat into safe or predictable roles, Jodie gravitated toward complexity. She was drawn to characters who existed at the edges of experience, whose lives required empathy rather than judgment. These choices reflected not provocation, but curiosity. She wanted to understand people deeply, even when their stories were uncomfortable. That instinct would become a defining feature of her career. setting her apart from peers and positioning her as an actor unafraid of emotional risk. Yet these roles also required her to confront mature themes while still developing her own sense of identity, further accelerating a process that might otherwise have unfolded more gently. Education as sanctuary. Amid the intensity of her professional life, education became a refuge. Jodie valued learning not as a credential but as a form of grounding. Books offered her continuity, classroom structure, and intellectual pursuit a sense of control separate from performance. This devotion culminated in her decision to attend Yale University, a choice that surprised many but made perfect sense to her. She wanted anonymity, rigor, and immersion in ideas unrelated to box office numbers or critical reception. At Yale, she studied literature with focus and seriousness, embracing the challenge of academic life as an equal rather than an exception. Living under unwanted attention. Her time at Yale, however, was disrupted by events entirely beyond her control. An act of political violence committed by a stranger who fixated on her work abruptly thrust her into an international spotlight of a different kind. The attention was invasive, frightening, and deeply destabilizing. Security measures replaced spontaneity, and normal campus life became nearly impossible. Yet despite the pressure, she remained committed to her education, refusing to let fear dictate the course of her life. That determination reflected a pattern already well established. When confronted with chaos, she chose discipline. When threatened with disruption, she chose completion. Graduating with purpose, Jodie graduated magna cum laude in 1985, having written a thesis centered on literary analysis and voice. The achievement was not symbolic. It was earned through sustained effort under extraordinary circumstances. Her time at Yale affirmed something she had long known, that her identity extended far beyond performance. She was not merely an actress who studied, but a thinker who acted. That distinction would inform her choices moving forward, allowing her to navigate Hollywood with both confidence and caution, reinvention and rejection. Returning to film after college was not seamless. The industry that had once embraced her now hesitated, uncertain how to place an adult version of a former child star. Projects stalled, roles evaporated, and doubt crept in from unexpected corners. Yet, rejection did not deter her. Instead, it sharpened her resolve to seek work that mattered, roles that demanded depth rather than familiarity. She waited patiently for material that aligned with her values, trusting that meaningful opportunity would arrive. The power of transformation. That opportunity came with a role that required emotional honesty and restraint. Her performance was raw, unflinching, and grounded in lived understanding. The recognition that followed was significant, but what mattered more was the confirmation that her instincts were right. That authenticity, even when difficult, resonated more deeply than polish alone. The award she received marked not a peak, but a recalibration, affirming her place not as a former prodigy, but as a formidable adult artist. Mastery and authority. Her subsequent work demonstrated increasing control and confidence. She prepared meticulously, collaborating with professionals outside the film industry to ensure accuracy and respect. Each performance reflected not just talent, but intention. She did not perform vulnerability. She inhabited it. This mastery earned her widespread acclaim and a second Academy Award, solidifying her reputation as one of the most disciplined and intelligent performers of her generation. Guarding the private self. Despite public success, Jodie remained fiercely private. She separated her work from her personal life with deliberate care, understanding the cost of overexposure. Relationships were nurtured quietly, away from speculation, and family life was protected with intention. When she became a parent, that instinct intensified. She prioritized normalcy, structure, and safety for her children, determined that their upbringing would not mirror the pressures of her own. Love without spectacle. Her long-term partnership during this period was built on mutual respect and shared responsibility. Together, they created a home defined by stability rather than display. Though the relationship eventually changed, it remained rooted in care and cooperation, particularly in parenting. For Jodie, love was not something to be performed. It was something to be practiced consistently, often away from view. Speaking on her own terms. When she eventually chose to acknowledge her personal truth publicly, she did so with clarity and restraint. There was no announcement, no demand for attention, only a statement of fact offered without apology. The response was immediate and profound, not because it was dramatic, but because it was authentic. She modeled a way of living openly without surrendering privacy, a balance she had been cultivating her entire life. A life shared, not displayed. Her marriage to Alexandra Hedison marked a new chapter defined by ease and partnership. Together, they built a life oriented around creativity, home, and presence. Their shared world was quiet by design, filled with art, conversation, and routine. For Jodie, this phase represented not reinvention, but integration, a life where personal truth and daily living finally aligned. Grief and continuity loss, however, remained an inevitable companion. The passing of her parents brought reflection rather than rupture, an opportunity to honor complexity rather than rewrite history. Her mother's death in particular marked the end of a foundational relationship, one defined by sacrifice, ambition, and unwavering belief. Grief arrived not as spectacle, but as a quiet reckoning, absorbed with the same steadiness that had defined her life. Living with intention. Today, Jodie Foster lives deliberately. She works selectively, mentors quietly, and moves through the world with confidence earned rather than asserted. Her days are shaped by curiosity, health, and connection. She remains intellectually engaged, emotionally present, and creatively ambitious without urgency. Fame no longer defines her rhythm. Purpose does. Influence beyond the screen. Her impact extends beyond performance. Through philanthropy, mentorship, and example, she supports causes aligned with her values, often without attribution. She understands influence not as volume, but as consistency. Her legacy is not built on visibility alone, but on integrity sustained over time. The measure of a life. Jodie Foster's story is not one of escape from hardship, but of adaptation through it. She did not emerge unscathed, but she emerged whole. Her life reflects the power of discipline, the necessity of boundaries, and the quiet strength of choosing authenticity again and again. If her greatest role is indeed her life, it is one performed not for applause, but for meaning, and that perhaps is her most enduring achievement.